it dawned on me at some point around 2 a.m., in the middle of going through my mental checklist of tasks that I could be completing in Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. My woodcutter life skill was finally high enough to chop down that new type of tree, which I could use the wood from in conjunction with my blacksmith skill to create a powerful new bow for my hunter life, meaning I could pass on my current best bow to my party member who had almost maxed out my relationship with, and together we could go make the rounds of fighting tougher boss spawns who might drop the loot that we needed to be able to craft a new pickaxe, which could mean that I can mine for more valuable ore, which would allow me to smith that new greatsword for my mercenary, which meant... Yeah, it was sometime around then that I realized Fantasy Life was 2025's most dangerous game for anyone with even the slightest penchant for getting lost inside the quagmire of a constantly rewarding Ouroboros of a gameplay loop. The new Fantasy Life from developer Level 5 is a follow-up to the Nintendo 3DS original. The games are billed as role-playing life simulations, which is pretty spot on. You accrue over a dozen different jobs or lives, each one with its own mechanics, missions, progression path, and skill tree. These fall into the buckets of combat, like a paladin or magician, gathering, like a miner or fisherman, or crafting, like a cook or an artist. You'll constantly be swapping between these jobs on the fly to deal with any given situation. One moment you're in a dungeon, blasting enemies with arrows, the next you're chipping away at a hunk of copper. Combat is a simple but satisfying hack and slash that's aided by a ton of gear, a big skill tree, and having 3 other NPC party members roaming around with you. Likewise, gathering resources and crafting items have their own minigames that lean on finding your target sweet spot or quickly inputting the right combination of actions. Again, nothing incredibly deep, but each one is satisfying to do on their own, and the game is constantly rewarding you with loot and frequent level ups. As you can probably tell, a session in Fantasy Life often unfolds like one of those dreaded everything games. An hour of play can feel like part Animal Crossing, part Stardew Valley, part Diablo, and part Breath of the Wild. People tell me it has shades of other games, ranging from Rune Factory to old-school RuneScape, but since I am staunchly anti-games with rune in their titles, I'll have to take their word for it. I'm 20 hours in at this point, but it would not surprise me if down the road I discovered a roguelike deck builder or cozy photography minigame tucked somewhere inside this Russian nesting doll of genres. While games that promise everything often crumble under their own weight of ambitions, each slice of Fantasy Life stands strong on its own, and more importantly creates a potent synergy with every other facet of the game. Also, the currency in this world is called Dash, which honestly might be my favorite video game currency since money with a U in Kingdom Hearts. The main story here has you discovering the mysteries of what happened to a once prosperous ancient society by traveling back and forth between the past and the present. Along the way, you set up a small little hamlet that you'll slowly transform into a community of your own, complete with all the Animal Crossing bells and whistles like inviting NPCs to move in, terraforming the grounds to your liking, plopping down all sorts of tchotchkes, and adding job-specific elements like fields of crops, ponds with fish, and crafting tables. And finally, a third layer alongside the overarching story and your own private Idaho is the sprawling open-world map known as Ginormosia. Gameplay here feels like Diet Breath of the Wild, complete with different biomes that seamlessly blend into one another, region-specific towers to awaken, puzzle shrines to complete, and these legally distinct Koroks to track down. I'm relatively sure I don't have ADHD, but any 30-minute stretch of Fantasy Life inevitably has me questioning that. Say I set a singular goal of exploring the dungeon on the far side of this archipelago. I land in town and start making my way straight there, but I spot an NPC with a new quest available, so obviously I have to snag that first. I mean, who knows, maybe I already have whatever they need and I can complete it right away. I make it down to the sand and encounter a few enemies, so I should take them out after swapping to my magician class since it's currently at a lower level than my other 3 combat classes. Okay, with them gone, I press on through the lagoons, and ooh, there's some fresh fish swimming around here that are just a few levels higher than my fishing skill, so I should snag some of them to raise that, plus they'd make good ingredients in cooking recipes. Oh, that reminds me, I wanted to check out a few of my current side quests and see if I picked up anything I could use for crafting items that I need to complete them. A few of them have really nice rewards, and I could use that extra dash to expand a few of the buildings back on my island. Man, that reminds me that I haven't actually been there in a few hours. Maybe I should go see if there's enough villagers to be able to clear the rest of that rubble, which would then let me build houses and raise my village level and... Shit! Why did I even go to these islands in the first place? Yeah, this is a pretty standard series of thoughts during any play session of Fantasy Life, which is hopefully a clear sign of whether you should buy this game immediately or start running in the polar opposite direction. Part of my attachment to it has been that it runs excellently on Steam Deck, making this a perfect second screen game to putter around in while watching something on YouTube. And side note, it is absolutely one of those games that could benefit from a chunky demo of its opening few hours, where you could then transfer your save file if you decide to jump into the full thing, a la Metaphor ReFantasio last year. That aside, there are a ton of quality of life features across Fantasy Life that make these extended play sessions much more palatable. Complex menus become easy to navigate once you've wrapped your head around them, with neat features like the ability to batch equip gear to each of your 14 jobs. This means that if I find a rad scarf that gives me a gradual SP regeneration, I can plop that on all of my lives at once instead of doing it one at a time. Along with that, seeing as how you'll be ping-ponging not only across the map, but across various time periods and dimensions, the ability to fast travel from anywhere plus ample fast travel points make navigating the world a breeze. So I was curious about the original 3DS Fantasy Life, especially after falling for this one. It was released in the US back in October 2014, and it's one that completely slipped by me, even though I've been a pretty big Level 5 fan from the jump, digging games like Dark Cloud, Rogue Galaxy, Professor Layton, and Ni no Kuni. Turns out, it released the same week as Sunset Overdrive, so I was probably off on my Xbox One experiencing the most underrated game of the 2010s. So yeah, this past weekend I fired up the 3DS original and jammed through the first few hours. Definitely a more simplistic version of the new one, but there's an inherent charm to the original that immediately endeared me to it. Early on, there's this bit where you need to dress up in order to gain access to the king's court. So you befriend a butterfly who's being bullied by a couple of thugs by bribing them with candy. The butterfly repays you by landing on your collar and tricking the guards into thinking you're wearing a fancy bow tie. It is very dumb, but it's also very charming. And that's the thing. I wish that this new game was just 20% stranger. The world can sometimes come off as a bit saccharine and generic, and maybe it's the Stockholm Syndrome of recently playing 6 straight hours of Dokapon Kingdom on stream, but Fantasy Life could use some of that game's absurdity. Likewise, a few of the jobs that you unlock through the main story quests, like Farmer and Artist, have really great NPCs at their heart, filled with character and charming little moments. I wish this depth of pal existed in any of the other 12 jobs, which would make earning and progressing through each one feel a bit more memorable. But those are relatively minor complaints in an otherwise lovely experience. It's awesome to see what an immediate critical and commercial success Fantasy Life I has been. Level 5 announced that it passed 500,000 copies sold in just 3 days, compared to the 3DS version's lifetime sales of 2.5 million. This is partly due to wisely moving away from the initial plan of it being a Switch exclusive, and instead releasing it on every platform including Steam, where it already hit an impressive 65,000 concurrent users. I think the biggest praise I can give Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time, is that I've already put in over 20 hours in 5 days, and when I'm not playing it, I am thinking about it. Is this going to be my forever game? No, probably not. But it landed at a great time after a deluge of big sprawling bangers like Clair Obscur and Doom, and before the launch of the new Switch and Death Stranding 2 arrived to take over my life. But even if it's just a fling, Fantasy Life has proven to be the most excellently dangerous game that I've played in 2025.